Hello, here we are, episode 123 of Live Drawing with me. I'm Ian Chase Nichols. I think everybody knows who I am that pops in, but in case there's any new folks. We had some new people last time. People don't know my work. I've worked on the Tick for many years. I worked on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Batman, TMNT, all kinds of different comic books. I did a Conan cover. I did a bunch of random covers, but the longest interior run I've had is on the Tick, and that lasted 10 years. So I spent a long time working on that book, and we are working on my original character still tonight, Undersea Hero. It's on page 44. This is a splash page, as you can see, where Krill Force has been unleashed. And for anyone who knows what krill are, they're these tiny little shrimps. So these are the ones that are really close to camera. Hey, Michael, good to see you. And they get smaller and smaller as they go into the background until they're like little dots. And you can see I put a silhouette of the correlator, who's our villain here, antagonist, however you wish to refer to him, so that we could have little tiny shrimp that'll be, about this big. Way in the background, because that's how small krill are. And I'll actually probably use some spatter on that too, just to break it up a little bit. Yeah, but you can see this is the world record page. So it says it right there. It's indisputable. We were talking about that last stream, so I'm going to keep that joke running. The most fighting shrimp ever on a page. It is a big splash page. It is hey Brian, it is I'm calling it the world record page. And if someone decides to say, that's not the world record page for most battle shrimp on a page, and they want to go do the research and find one that has more shrimp on it that are clad in battle gear with their little shrimp weapons. This is the sort of stuff that I did. That's, why our book's late, but hopefully it's what makes it special when it shows up at everybody's mailboxes. I do have other news. I did get a new computer on a Black Friday deal, and supposedly it's on its way here. So this might be the last stream on the old rig. So the next one's faster and everything, so hopefully it'll help. I know my internet's not the most expensive, so I know that makes a huge difference. But we do the best we can. Hope everybody's having a good night. Today was kind of a long day. I don't know. I was working on stuff that it's for the Steamship Authority, and I can't announce anything yet. But they're going to be making an announcement soon, and my work today was related to that announcement. I don't know when the press release goes out, but my work will be very prominent on a project that's going to be announced. Michael says he got his aunt an Apple Mini basic model, and she loves it much faster than her old computer. Very nice. I stuck with PC. HP was having a hell of a deal on their high-end workstations, so I got one of their Z series. Crazy amount of RAM, crazy amount of speed, especially for the amount that it cost. They were selling those things at like 40% off for Black Friday. So my like 8 or 9 year old Inspiron has taken me a long way, and I wanted to get it replaced before it completely died, so that I could get everything switched over and copied in all my files and everything. I have most get the rest of them done. I actually haven't used an Apple regularly since like my first job out of college, second job out of college. I've worked for so many small companies that you get it's just expensive for the machine you're buying. I know some people are very loyal to their products or whatever. I don't. I have a very old iPhone. That's the only Apple product that I have. And it makes more sense when you have all Apple stuff. Like you got the phone, you got the pad, you got all that stuff. So, as you can see, this page is in varying degrees of completion. That's because with something like this, I kind of have to do a few different steps at the same time to keep my interest. Finish one and I ink it, it really helps me keep my momentum going. Um, Makes me feel like I'm getting closer, even though it's the same distance of a race, but for some reason, I don't know why my screen shrank. There we go. For some reason, that helps me stay on task. It's just breaking up. Instead of just continuing to pencil the whole time, I can do some inking. I can do some stuff. Um, but yeah, I'll get my pen and we'll keep drawing little attack shrimp. They all have different little weapons. Some of them have these little swords that are like little pokers. Some of them have like little, even teeny little knives. This page makes me think of Sergio Aragonés, and only in its busyness. He was famous for doing those big 2-page spreads with 1,000,000 characters on them, and Grew the Wanderer. So, which was a book I always tell people if you ever see one in the dollar bin to grab it, because they're all standalone stories and they're all a lot of fun. This might be the most characters I've ever drawn on a page, just in general, but I'd have to go back because early in my career, I don't know what was going on, but like I had plenty of writers who were doing the like fight scene in Times Square on New Year's Day kind of stuff. There's just so many shrimp, so little time to draw. I hope to spend some time today getting a little bit of drawing on it, but didn't even really have a lunch break today, so no lunch break, no drawing. And I did some painting for work, and I did some pen and ink for work this week that I just had to work on. Thanks, Jay. Born to Krill is one. Krill or be krilled. Kriller instinct. The krill puns will never cease. Once this book sees print, that's the kind of thing that I will write whenever I sign something. Best Fishes is one that I stole from Steve Martin, which I'm sure he stole from someone else. But yeah, the krill related puns will be numerous and unstoppable. The thing that's fun about Krill Force to me is that like it's another one of those things where there's such silly little designs. There's really no way to draw them wrong. As long as you're drawing like the little feet and they're kind of shrimp shaped, like that's Krill Force. I think anybody could draw themselves a Krill Force. Gotta get some new pens. The tips are all getting broken. They all have little sashes on them that say Krill Force. So it's again a very easy. If anybody wanted to cosplay as something from Undersea Hero, the Spongeman, you just wear like a fluffy sponge on your head with googly eyes, and then for the Krill Force, I think you really could just wear the antennae like SNL, like the bees, and then just have a sash that says Krill Force on it. I think that would count as a Krill Force cosplay. Be real easy. Envy to bring, but the colors. So like all the shrimp are by and large, because we're using an old coloring system that has limited colors. Although I might do like the front layer full color and then the second layer flat and then like the third layer back, we just start making them like single color. That would actually give it a nice balance of depth. You know, I thought some about the color on this page, but I didn't fully think it through because it's just going to be a mess either way. But if I can organize it with just like in old comics, if you look at stuff that was in the background, they would have it just be cyan. Like they would block out like just a certain size. I would just pick out a certain size because that's how far away they are from the camera. Like maybe all the ones that are like in this tall and smaller will just be blue. And each little shrimp, you know, it's funny because like even the little tiny ones, like I try to give them just a little bit of personality, even though they're going to be shrunk down even more when the comic book is printed. Like this shrimp here, that's maybe a half inch. He's probably an inch tall. I expected Jay to come in with the song lyrics krill related puns. I would say I expected a krilling in the name of. I expected, you know. I did send an email to a large comic convention that I've always wanted to do the other day. I don't know if I will get a spot, but we will see. Um, it's been on my list for most of my career. If you know me, I've done most of the big shows by now. There's only a couple left to tick off my to-do list. I'd love to do one over in Europe. I think if I was designing any sort of merch for Krill Force, it would probably just be like if anybody remembers back in the day, they used to do like these tubes full of sea creatures. You could buy them at like zoos and stuff. It'd just be a tube full of Krill Force. You know, the ads for like the 100 soldiers in the old comic books. Be something like that. Someone's going to look at this page when it's shrunk down and just say, why in God's name would you draw all those shrimp? And I'm sure better cartoonists would do like, silhouettes. They would do, some sort of fancy design with a bunch of shadows and stuff. And I'm just like, nah, I'm just gonna draw a whole bunch of shrimp. Honestly, it's the least clever way to do it. But this will be one of those pages that gets buried with me when I leave this mortal coil. Sometimes in comics, I get frustrated having to draw like tiny little stuff. Because you think you're drawing on an 11 by 17 piece of paper. This is a big piece of paper. But really, like, because there's so much that has to go on sometimes, I end up like challenge. It's like a challenge of how teeny tiny something can be drawn. Or like you'll do a big foreground background shift where you'll have like, a big thing in the foreground and a little thing in the background. You know. Yeah, I don't know how many shows I will do next year. I would like to do maybe three or four. If I did a couple of big ones and a couple of little ones, I think that would be good for the year. I don't anticipate going on like big tours like I had done the year I was launching this Kickstarter. Just don't have the time off. Excuse me. And then you have another little one. It's like even see, and then some of them just kind of turn into outlines where you're just doing the silhouettes. You get that small. There's also a very like practical reason as to why I wanted to show like all the shrimp, other than it just not being like the most clever way to do it. And it has to do with the storytelling. There's such a big build up to their arrival that I think that there needs to be a payoff. And I'm hoping that this page is enough of a payoff for all the build up that we do. And we actually have a false start when the machine doesn't work. And, Professor Prawn is like turning it off and turning it back on again. So, like, there's even a bigger delay in seeing Krill Force. It does not just happen. And again, is anyone going to see all those tiny little krill? Probably not, but I'll know they're there. And the other thing about this one is we can easily turn it into a poster. Like that's the other thing that's cool about this page. There's no text on it. It's silent, just splash page, and there's just a zillion krill. This is definitely the type of joke that Jay would make fun of me for in a drive to a comic convention. Also, the joke that comes after this page is again asking the audience to take a leap with me. So, well, a lot of uh, a lot is being asked. So, I wanted to deliver a lot on this page. I'll be honest, I really haven't drawn much in the way of any sort of like other IPs or anything. Like, I really just work on this when I have any time to draw. I occasionally I'll draw like a little Helena sketch or just do some drills, but my creative output is still just entirely devoted to getting this book done because it's late. It is late. But I'm planning on doing some stuff to, some additional things that people will receive in there. Anybody that got physical stuff, I'll make sure everybody gets taken care of. It's like a wizard, yes. It arrives precisely when it's supposed to, right? In the words of Gandalf the Grey. They're all doing their battle cry, the krill battle cry. I do not even know what a krill screaming sounds like, so we will have to explore that at some point. It sounds like a summer cottage squeaky door with a microphone. I actually think I've been adding more shrimp as I've worked on this page from my prelim. My prelim is buried somewhere, so I'm not going to waste time and dig it out, but we showed it off on the previous episode. Tiny shrimp, teeny tiny. When they're this small, I'm not going to do like an in-depth penciling because like it's going to be 60% of what you see here. So if this is a half-inch tall, when it's printed, it's going to be a quarter inch, maybe. There's smarter math people in the comments section, so. I'm betting Michael's better at math than I am. So I was watching a documentary on Tubi this week, and it's about like it proposes that it's about the formation of like the MCU, and it goes into some of the comic book background and stuff. And it was perpetuating a thing that I've really noticed and taken a. Uh, I find it uh, concerning that it has become the predominant narrative, and that is that like in this entire documentary, they've really only interviewed and talked to the writers of the comic books. Um, they talked to Straczynski, they talked to Abnett, they talked to um, Jeff Loeb, and they didn't talk to any of their artists. Talked to Mark Miller about the Ultimates comic book, and they mentioned Brian Hitch and they showed his work, but they didn't bother to talk to him, and they didn't give him nearly as much cred as they gave the writers. So, and when they talked about the creation of the Marvel characters, they really only talked about Stan Lee. I do not think they mentioned Jack Kirby's name for any character other than Captain America, really. Which they did credit Joe Simon and Captain America. Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. I just see that that's become the way that people talk about comic books outside of our little bubble. Because I think everybody here knows comic artists and knows people that make comics and write, or they do it, or they write and draw. And they know how hard both of those things are. This one's a little bit bigger, so I want to get the proportions right. I fully penciled the larger ones and like the medium sized ones. You see, like this one where he's like punching straight at the camera. And, I could get my eraser and clean it up a little bit. I did log into my Blue Sky account for the first time in like well over a month. So I'll try to. I did have some messages I hadn't replied to. I didn't even know they were there. So I'll try to get back to those as I can. Sorry, I just hadn't been using that. I get lost. There's so many platforms. I'll probably just have to drop one or something. I don't know. I feel like I probably would drop Twitter as far as one that I actively used, just because I used to be able to put my stream on there, which was one of the reasons I started using it more. And they canceled that for people who aren't paying for a membership. Did get some bummer news today. Next week, I got to take my car in to replace the exhaust, like the whole exhaust. It's an old car, so stuff like this comes up, but it's still, those bills are never fun. Now you can start to see the amount of noise with this little corner here. It's going to cover the whole thing like this at this level of detail. And that's what I want to see. And it's going to have a very interesting feeling of movement and chaos that I'm, hoping creates a sense of feeling. There's an artist named Jerry Grandinetti, who's not very well known. He worked at DC and Warren in the 70s. I don't know if he did any Marvel work, but he worked in the Eisner studio in the Golden Age, and he had the ability with his artwork to create almost a feeling of what's the right word? Vertigo when you looked at it. Like the way he spun the panels and moved you around and stuff. And I was just always amazed by that because that's you're always trying to get somebody to feel something looking at your artwork. And I can't say that any other artist had made me feel like that reading their work. Now, I don't know if it's pleasant or not, but it was fascinating. Let's see if we can fill out this whole area. Let's try to finish this whole corner. So that would give people an understanding of what the overall experience of this page is going to be. One thing that is also fun about the Krill Force is the elasticity of their expressions. Because there's not really, like I said, I don't think there's a wrong way to draw a Krill Force. So, like, obviously, shrimp shells don't bend or anything, so we're already breaking all the rules with just them having mouths that work like that instead of like the predator's mouth, where it opens sideways, which is how crab and shrimp mouths open. Ocean facts. Some cool ocean facts happened this week. We reached the deepest part of the Atlantic Ocean with a manned submersible. Pretty cool. Nobody had ever been there before. And it's on our planet. It's like, what is it, 5 miles down? Crazy. And they have cameras and stuff down there now, and then they set up like these watching outposts. And if you look on, uh, they have a TikTok page and they have a YouTube where they've been showing all these amazing creatures. They showed a nautilus the other day that was the deepest they'd ever recorded a nautilus. Very cool stuff. There's just so many animals in the deep sea of this planet that we've never seen before that are real and undiscovered and just fascinating. It is having a whole other planet, whole other environment, just like, right there. And the edges, I can walk to the end of my block and I can see the edge of that universe because I can see the water. Now, it's not a beachfront view or anything, it's the harbor with a whole bunch of fishing boats, but it's pretty cool. I must have accidentally erased the shrimp here when I was. The next page after this one will take considerably less time, even though it's still got a lot of krill force on it. It will not be like this, where you have a foreground, middle ground, background layers of size of shrimp to draw. Trying to create like in that we're trying to create a, let's call it conclusive view of the krill force attack from a vantage point that people will be familiar with. I have read some comics lately. I did read some old Ann Nesenti Daredevils. Those were quite good. I enjoyed those a great deal. Got them in a dollar bin at an antiques depot in town here. Actually, I think it's a $2 bin. $2 bin. In my day, they were $1 bins. The dollar bins are harder and harder to find these days. I don't know if we can probably try to zoom in a little bit. Hopefully it doesn't mess with the focus, because we've had that problem before. And then we'll draw a bigger shrimp after we finish this section over here. Although it's nice to see it coming together. That's a tough krill. He's got the determined look on his face. Krilling machine right there. We've got part of this krill's tail to deal with here. Hey Andrew, thanks very much, and thanks for posting that cover I did. It's doing a Conan cover was something that I dreamt of doing as a kid. It's not the kind of thing that a lot of people get to do, and I was very lucky, and it was a young fan dream come true for me. Probably I'll never get to work on Conan ever again, but I can at least say I did that one, and I'm proud of the one. I don't know why I'm drawing this guy without a weapon. He's just got his hands. He's going at it with his bare hands. He's going to go in. Let's put a little drool on him. He's crazy, crazy krill. Maybe he's like that guy on Predator. He just has the one knife. He's trying to kill the predator on the bridge. He's just got the machete. I haven't seen that movie in a long time, so I don't remember what that guy's name is. Forgot the antenna for this one. That's terrible. This antenna will go in front of him. Visual chaos is what really this page is, as in spades. Trying to set that world record in style. Got a fair amount of people in here. If we got any new people, welcome aboard. I've actually been impressed at the amount of people who don't follow me on YouTube that still pop in from time to time, which means they have to like mark their calendar or something if they don't subscribe. So thank you. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. We are not a turkey household. We did slow cooked ribs. My wife made her slow cooked ribs, which were great. My mother-in-law made a pie. I made cornbread. And we had like some bread and she made scalloped potatoes. My mother-in-law did. They were very good. I have begun my Christmas shopping. Got a long way to go, but I have started, so we're not starting from zero. One of the things I did to try to create separation between foreground characters and background characters, obviously other than just drawing them much larger, is you'll see like on this character, the line thickness. Run into that thing where it doesn't want to focus, so I'm going to pull back a little bit. My high-tech zoom. The line thickness here is much different than what's back here, and I'll probably do some more exaggerating of that as we get some more of the inking done. But yeah, you can see we've got quite a few shrimp. I don't even want to count how many are shrimp in this corner, let alone on the entire page. Maybe that's one of those things I'll award a prize for at a convention. I'll put this piece out and it's like, guess the number of krill, win a drawing or something. Everybody gets a sticker for trying, or but if you get it within, I don't know, we'll pick a number. Yes, you're krilling it. Exactly. You're getting into the swing of the krill related puns. Kriller dropping. It's krill or be krilled. It does mean I'll have to count them all, but I can do that while while we're waiting for books to show up when they're at the printer, when we're sitting at a convention sometime, Brian. Or I will pay one of your children to count them for me. Get in there and pencil this one a little bit. Well, then I believe we found the perfect person for the job. If if Ayla counts everything. Oops, sorry, I bumped the camera with my head. Surprised that doesn't happen more often. I remember when I was thinking about Krill Force for the first time, I was thinking about what the heck they looked like. They had to look kind of like Professor Prawn. And then I was thinking about what weapons would they give them, and there's a joke in the book that explains why they don't have guns. Um, and it pretty much has to do with how cheap the correlator is, and little tiny guns would be more expensive than little tiny pokey sticks. Now he doesn't say it directly, but he complains about something else, and that would be, if anyone was like, well, why don't the little shrimp guys have undersea Tommy guns or something? It's really just because the correlator would be too cheap to buy them. Now here's just a quick artist tip where I'm just kind of going to fudge the spacing a little bit because I don't want his tail touching the other character creating a tangent. So we're going to he's going to be a shorter prawn. His leg's not going to be sticking out. And have his toe like that. Then his other leg would be coming down like this. We could have it go back like that. Brian says he has a country store countertop pickle jar filled with pennies, and she counted them all one day for fun. I mean, did she get to keep any of the pennies? I mean, a whole jar of pennies. That might be for enough for a Coke or something. Another artist trick to give a dimension to a character is to have a little bit of a break. So we intentionally have this hand of this character on the other side of this arm of the foreground character, but it's the same character. I think there's going to be a tiny bit of his helmet. Maybe not. This guy's antennae go the other way. $8,009. Oh, it's a giant jar. Okay. I was thinking of like a little like a mason jar. So it's going in the college fund, kiddo. Them college fund pennies, kiddo. Them. I try to make the faces a little different on each of them. Jack Kirby was a master of doing stuff like this, where if you look at the new gods, anytime you would see the Hunger Dogs or the Dark Side's minions, attacking, he would have one in the foreground looking at the viewer because he understood that the reader himself or herself or themselves is a participant in the storytelling, and without really breaking the fourth wall, like having the character talk at the viewer or at the reader. It's kind of like a little wink and a nod that they're acknowledging that they're there. Howard Chaykin's written about this with some of his writing about the reader's place in the story function. Thinking about the mechanics like that, I always find kind of fascinating. Page dynamics are like my favorite thing. Like figuring out what the person will see next, the next page. That's like coming up with those page turns is one of my favorite things. And I think it'll show through when you see this finished book. There have been times in my career where I've planned a page turn and they would throw an ad, so then that page would now be on the wrong side. So, like, instead of it being on the left, it would be on the right or whatever, and then that would throw off future pages. Like something where, because when you look at a two-page spread, when you see a left and a right, you're actually looking at the future all at once. Like you're seeing ahead in the story when you first turn the page. I don't know why. I just wanted this one's antennae to be going the other way. Quick baseball talk. I saw the Red Sox signed Aroldis Chapman. Not thrilled with that. Not thrilled. And I really don't think they're going to be able to get Juan Soto. I think Scott Boras, his agent, is just using the Red Sox as leverage to try to get the Yankees to pay more. He's done it many, many times in the past. That's why he gets paid what he gets paid, and he's good at what he does. Little tiny legs that are like in front of them. Oh, I blocked his sword. That's a bummer. We'll have it between his legs. We'll have one little leg in front of his sword and one little leg behind his sword. With a big group scene like this, big crowd scene, I'm not worried about those little mistakes because honestly, very few people are going to notice them. I think the people on this stream will notice them because they watched the stream, or they are fully vested in this. Really, the overall visual chaos, as long as that comes through when I finish this page, I will have done, I think, the job of that needed to be done for this to serve the narrative. There we go. Drawing so many little shrimp. I actually, I would say about 2 years ago, I started collecting permissions from various publishers I'd worked with to put together an official art book, like that has a lot of my published stuff in it. Maybe that'll be the next big undertaking I revisit after this. I was able to get more sign-offs than I thought I would, so there's a few big ones left. Still got to get NEC to sign off on the tick, and then I still got to reach out to IDW. But the person who I work for at IDW is working there again, so I might be able to at least get a message through. It's a buffet. Yes, it is a gigantic shrimp buffet. I think about, in movies, especially in my lifetime, the mixed chaos that they're able to achieve with, computer effects and using computer characters, CG characters. And I remember the first few times I saw that was in like the original Spawn movie when he's in hell and they have all the different characters that they basically just copy and paste. They all move the same way. Um, and it's just in so many movies now, they just have, legions of background characters. That was something that didn't really in cinema except for like the most expensive, Longest Day or those big, prestige movies or Ben-Hur. I remember that one being one that had tons of people. Because even in Gladiator, I remember there not being as many soldiers as you think, and there is a CG, like the big crowds in the Coliseum are all CG. This is just the lower, I would say, quarter of the page, so we've got a ways to go. I would agree. The Lord of the Rings did do a good job with their battle scenes, says my pal Brian. Those movies hold up pretty darn well. I rewatch them every couple of years. It's been a while since I reread the books. Um, Maybe that's something I should consider doing. Yeah, just the scope that they're able to achieve now with like they'd be able to do a Crow Force shot with a copy and paste, real quick, um, in a film. Although I would much rather see it done with like a million puppets or whatever, or stop motion. I can understand why they have to do it that way. I'm hoping we can actually finish this whole bar here before we sign off. I think we got a, I think we got a chance. It's a little worn out. Let's see. It's an FH. This one's pretty good. Put a little drool on this guy here too. He's bloodthirsty. Bloodthirsty krill right there. That's the kind of thing that's fun just as I'm going along. It's one of the things I also find, that when I draw too tightly and I draw everything on the first pass, that I get bored when I go to ink it and it's not as exciting and I don't think I do as good of a job. Now, maybe if I was inking someone else, like when I've inked Campana, it's new to me, so like I'm approaching all of those inking decisions as my creative decisions. So like when I ink somebody else, I don't get that same burnout. I do get it with my own drawing. So like when I can leave them a little looser, I'm inking myself, I can go in there and there's like a freshness that's there throughout the process that it definitely feeds my creative energy. That's a good point. I'm gonna highlight that comment from Brian. If it'll let me. It's nice that krill can float in their environment, so you can just draw tons of them everywhere versus having to draw creatures on land, keeping them in perspective along the horizon. Makes sense. Yeah, you can just use, because they're in zero gravity, you can just use organic perspective and some easy tricks to give yourself some depth instead of having to grid it out. Overall, that's one thing that has been good about on the Undersea Hero project in general, is that, with the exception of like when they're inside one of the dwellings or whatever, I can draw them, floating. I can draw them doing whatever, and it all works because it's like you said, there's zero gravity, and we don't have to worry about it. You just know that the smaller ones are further away. We'll just give this one a machete. And then we'll make it look like one of the little shrimp weapons by giving it like a jagged edge. That's really the only trick to the krill weapons, is they have a jagged edge. Because if you just think of like a lobster claw, or like the legs, the pointy lobster legs, that's generally what I'm thinking. This page will be like the one that they when they are analyzing me after I'm dead. They'll refer to it as a graphomania page, where, if you know what that means, it's the people that like fill diaries up with just like little marks. And there's no rhyme or reason to them. It's just the mark making in prodigious volumes for unknown purposes. Not sure what I would name this guy. Machete Mark or something. I don't know. Something stupid. He does need a stupid name, and it probably needs to have machete in it, since he's the only one with a machete. not using a ton of brush here. I mean, you can see where I went and did all the lines here with a brush. You can see that I filled this in with brush. So like the big figures have some brush work on them, but the smaller ones are pretty much entirely uh, tech pens, or however you want to refer to these, pit pens. If I had to ink these tiny little guys all with a brush, like when I first started out, I felt like it was required. You had to ink everything with a brush. That's it. I mean, while it was useful, like I learned how to ink straight lines with a brush and things like that. I also found out just how much extra time that stuff takes, just because of the tool. Thanks, Michael. It's going to be a whole page of this just absolute mania. So every now and again, I look and I just see, oh, I'll make another little mark on this shrimp here, a little mark on this shrimp here, just as I'm going through. There's our little machete guy, drooling machete guy. He's definitely crazy. Maybe I'll name him after that guy from Stripes, Francis. What was his name? Francis. This one up here is pretty cool because he's kind of doing like a Donatello thing. He's got like a bow staff and he's kicking towards the viewer. I don't know why I went in that direction, but I did. And I still need to even chunk out the top part of like where the rest of the big shrimp need to go based on my prelim. That's the good thing about having the prelims this time, because I kind of know where the big ones need to go, like this. And I think one goes here. And then we have like one where he's like upside down, like that. And then the rest are all small guys like that. There you can see the chaos filling in. Like that. Little background shrimp. I don't need to draw like more than just the main elements. Let me fill in with the teeny shrimp. It's kind of weird that like the places where there are breaks, visual breaks, are actually in their mouths. Like you can see that's like some of the largest white areas on this whole piece. It's a weird development that I didn't think of. It won't be that way when it's in color, so that's probably why I didn't think of it, but it'll be interesting on the original. All right, well, we'll do a little eraser cleanup and then we'll call it a night. Hope everybody's having an okay week. I hope they have a good weekend coming up. Like I said, next week we might be surfing on a new board, as I like to say, the new computer. So maybe it'll be a little faster. Maybe I'll sound a little better. I don't know. But we'll keep adding to our setup. Maybe we'll get a microphone or something, a dedicated microphone for the sound to be better. Here's the section we worked on tonight. You can see all the tiny little shrimp. We can zoom in. You can see all that visual chaos. All the tiny little shrimp attacking. The krill force attacking. Unleashed. And then we're going to have to fill out the rest of this thing. But I feel really good that we got just a whole bar across the whole bottom done. So that's going to give me good momentum tomorrow to dig in and maybe take up this next section tomorrow here, and then over the weekend 1, 2. That would be really exciting if we could get this page done Saturday. So you can maybe zoom out. Zoom out enough to where you see most of the page. I don't know. I hope everybody has a good night, and I will see you next week. Take care. Thanks, everybody.